Today, we're going to talk about a weapon, but it's not a missile and it's not a bomb. It's something much closer to home, the human mind itself. This is the story of a top-secret government operation with a chillingly bland name, Project MKUltra. Its goal was simple, but its methods were monstrous, and its existence was so secret that when the time came to bury the evidence, the shredders ran for days on end. This was a program that should never have existed, and for a very long time, the CIA did everything in its power to make sure we believed it didn't.
Just imagine this for a second. What if the very people sworn to protect you decided they didn't just want to know what you were thinking, but they wanted to reach right into your head, wipe the slate clean, and build you back up to do whatever they wanted? I know, it sounds like something straight out of a spy movie, right? But this was the terrifying question at the heart of a very real and very dangerous government project. To understand how something this extreme could even happen, we have to go back to the paranoia of a new kind of global war. The year is 1953. The Cold War is in full swing, and in the halls of Washington, D.C., the biggest fear wasn't about tanks or planes, it was about brainwashing. You see, this fear didn't just come out of nowhere. It had been building for years. After the Korean War, American soldiers were returning home, but they weren't the same. They gave these strange, robotic-sounding confessions about crimes they supposedly committed. Some prisoners of war even refused to come home at all, choosing to stay in China. For officials in the US, this wasn't just clever propaganda, it was proof that their enemies had somehow cracked the code of the human mind. So you can imagine the CIA was in a total panic. They truly believed they were falling behind in a mind control gap. The ultimate fear was that an enemy agent, a sleeper, could be your neighbor, a regular American citizen, just waiting to be activated by a simple trigger word. In that kind of atmosphere, there were no ethical debates. There was only fear, and that fear gave them permission to cross every single moral line. So let's just lay out the timeline here, because it's a chilling one. The project officially kicks off in 1953, and right away it claims its first high-profile victim. Then, for 20 years, 2 decades, it operates completely in the shadows. In 1973, a direct order comes down to destroy all the records. And it wasn't until 2 years after that, in 1975, that a congressional investigation finally started to drag the terrible secrets of MKUltra into the light. So in response to this perceived threat, the CIA launched what one historian has called a Manhattan Project for the Mind. It was this huge, sprawling, top-secret effort to basically deconstruct and then rebuild human consciousness itself. The official mission, launched on April 13th, 1953, sounds almost sterile, to research techniques for covertly influencing human behavior. But what they were really after was the stuff of nightmares. They were hunting for a perfect truth serum, a way to erase memories, a method to create an assassin who would have no memory of their crime, a real-life Manchurian candidate. And every project like this has a mastermind. The man running the show day to day was a brilliant chemist named Dr. Sidney Gottlieb. His colleagues gave him a nickname, the Poisoner in Chief, and he had the full backing of the big boss, CIA Director Allen Dulles, who saw the program as a necessary evil to catch up with the Soviets. Under Gottlieb's direction, MKUltra just exploded into this huge tangled web. I mean, think about this number, 149. That's how many separate sub-projects there were. Each one explored a different dark alleyway in the quest to control the mind. The whole thing was so compartmentalized that it's believed only Gottlieb and maybe one other person knew the full horrifying scope of what was happening. So, how do you even run 149 secret experiments? Well, you don't do it in a CIA basement. You hide in plain sight. Using front organizations with boring names, they funneled money to over 80 different institutions. We're talking prestigious universities, hospitals, even federal prisons. They all became unwitting laboratories for the CIA's most dangerous work, and most of them had absolutely no idea. And this is where the story gets truly disturbing, because the methods they used were just a laundry list of psychological and physical torture, and they were tested on thousands of unwitting American and Canadian citizens, people who were treated as nothing more than disposable guinea pigs. I mean, you name it, they tried it. They were looking for any way to crack the human psyche wide open. Psychoactive drugs, especially LSD, were a huge part of it. But so was hypnosis, sensory deprivation in isolation tanks, and electroshock therapy turned up to terrifying levels. They even experimented with chemical agents and outright psychological abuse, pushing every possible boundary in their search for control. If you want just one example of how depraved this all got, look no further than Operation Midnight Climax. Seriously, that was its name. The CIA set up safe houses in New York and San Francisco, basically fake brothels. Prostitutes on the CIA payroll would lure men back, and once they were there, they'd be secretly dosed with LSD. And the whole time, CIA agents were sitting behind a two-way mirror, just watching, taking notes on the psychological meltdowns they were causing. But as horrifying as that is, the most devastating work may have happened in Montreal. A renowned psychiatrist named Dr. Ewan Cameron had a theory he called de-patterning. The goal, funded by the CIA, was to completely erase a person's mind and then rebuild it from scratch. His methods were torturous. He took patients, many of whom were just dealing with things like anxiety, and put them in drug-induced comas for months. He subjected them to electroshock therapy at 30 to 40 times the normal power. And he used something called psychic driving, where they were forced to listen to looped audio messages, sometimes hundreds of thousands of times, to drill new thoughts into their heads. So, did it work? Was it a cure? No, it was annihilation. Patients like Linda McDonald were left completely broken. When she finally got out, she couldn't recognize her own family. Her past was just gone. The CIA had funded an attempt to wipe a human mind clean, and in the process, they had simply destroyed it. Now, the victims of this program weren't just the public. The intense secrecy and cruelty of MKUltra eventually started to eat away at the inside, leading to a very suspicious death and eventually a desperate cover-up. Let's talk about Dr. Frank Olson. He was an Army scientist who worked closely with the CIA. In November of 1953, he's at a secret retreat, and his own colleagues spike his drink with LSD. He had no idea. A few days later, this brilliant scientist is having a complete psychotic breakdown. He was taken to New York for psychiatric help, and early one morning, he fell to his death from his 13th floor hotel window. For decades, his family was told it was a tragic suicide. That was the official story. Fast forward to 1973. The Watergate scandal is exploding, and Congress is starting to look very, very closely at the intelligence community. The CIA director at the time, Richard Helms, who had been there since the beginning of MKUltra, knew he was sitting on a ticking time bomb. So in January of that year, he gave a chilling order: destroy every single document related to the program. The shredders ran nonstop to erase decades of abuse to make the whole thing just disappear. And they almost got away with it. They really did. But in a wild twist of fate, what you could call bureaucratic incompetence saved the day. About 20,000 pages of financial records had been misfiled, so they survived the purge. Those few scraps of paper, along with the brave testimony of survivors, were the key that Senator Frank Church's committee used in 1975 to finally expose the program to a completely shocked nation. So in the end, after all the pain, all the secrecy, all the destroyed lives, did MKUltra even work? Well, the short answer is no. They never created a real-life Manchurian candidate. They never found a reliable mind control technique, but its true legacy is something else entirely. What the program really proved is just how quickly fear, when you combine it with unchecked power and total secrecy, can absolutely demolish the ethical code of even our most powerful institutions. In terms of mind control, it achieved nothing. But it was incredibly successful at destroying lives and shattering the public's trust in its own government. Now, some good did come from the public outrage. It led to much stricter rules for medical research and permanent congressional oversight of the intelligence agencies. But it also left behind this permanent scar of distrust. It's become a cultural touchstone. I mean, every time you watch a show like Stranger Things and see a secret government lab doing horrific experiments, you're seeing the ghost of MKUltra. The thing is, because those files were so systematically destroyed, we will probably never know the full extent of the experiments or the true number of victims. The architects of the program are gone, the files are ash, but the unanswered questions and the chilling possibility of what they might have discovered in their secret war on the mind, those remain.
If you found this video valuable, please subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us keep uncovering hidden histories and bringing these stories to light.